Welcome back to Transcribed, the podcast where we unlock the minds building the future of biotech. Today's guest has started and sold companies across 3 continents. And now he's turning that experience into fuel for Europe's next generation of health innovators. As the managing director and co-founder of Springboard Health Angels, he bridges the gap between deep scientific expertise and the capital needed to scale it. He operates where the lab meets the market, backing early-stage health tech, mentoring founders, and working to close the funding gap that keeps too many promising biotech startups from ever reaching patients. So please welcome Dr. Andreas Schmidt.
Thanks a lot. Excited to be here.
Let's start off with a super general question, and of course it is also the most important question, and that is, what exactly do you do at Springboard Health Angels?
So we invest in very early companies, but we do that with a mindset of founders, of operators. And I think that's something that's greatly needed in the ecosystem. So none of us have seen ourselves actually as investors or as classical VCs, while many of us actually have been rather on the other side, raising money ourselves. And I think that's greatly appreciated by both other investors as well as by founders, that you can talk to people that have been in their shoes before.
Now, was there a specific moment in your childhood or your early life that pointed you towards the direction of science? Like, was there a person or book or a specific experience?
Yes, absolutely. So I'm from a smaller town in the north of Germany, Bad Salzuflen. And so the one moment that shaped actually how I think about science was Jugend forscht, like the science competition in Germany, where we were actually very successful in. And that was building a team. We were a team that was larger than what was allowed. We broke a lot of rules in a friendly way, but it was a great motivation actually for a team of 7 there to come up with interesting results, to be invited to different cities, to present it, to also even earn quite some cash awards. And that was mind-blowingly opening the world of science to me. Since then, I wanted to be a scientist in a very innovative way.
What sparked for you the drive to build a company instead of, do a scientific career where you have more a research position?
So at the beginning of my PhD, and I went to grad school in Berkeley, I thought of myself rather in academia, because that's what's your surrounding. You know the professors, you know what other people are doing. But more and more towards the end of the PhD, I realized actually I'm working in quite some startups. I'm friends with people that started companies, and all of a sudden it was just the most exciting thing than to start a company. And I had other career opportunities. It could have also been consulting or academia, but what I was really burning for was building a company.
You've lived and built companies across Berkeley, Singapore, Boston, and of course Germany. Which of those places would you say shaped you the most personally, and why did it do that?
Each in a unique way, I think. I just mentioned Berkeley, and it was not just the city, but it was the micro environment of Berkeley that shaped me. I lived in the International House, 600 people from 90 nations in one house. So you had a lot of mind-bending conversations that opened up my personal horizon until today. Some of the people from that time are still friends of mine, and many of them went on to interesting careers, various places in the world. I remember one situation there. They had formal seated dinners on Sundays, Sunday suppers. And with 200-300 people, I walked into the room, heavy wooden doors. I was much too late. I was running there to actually still make it. I opened the door. Everybody looked around and was starting to clap. And I thought, what's going on? I didn't do anything special here. And I was just awarded actually to be most likely to win the Nobel Prize from all the residents as a fun award, but I didn't know anything about it. So that was one of these topics where people saw in me that, yes, I will go for something scientific.
You mentioned before the conversation that sometimes doing things outside of the typical thing you would do in the study helps you in the end at the career. What are those typical things that students could do more of that they might be very happy 20 years later?
I can just give you a few examples. I mean, just a few days ago, I ran into a friend of mine from student times back in Cologne, and we ran actually the first founder convention in the University of Cologne called Gründerkomet. I've still found some old flyers like from 25 years ago. And actually that drove me to get to know actually startups, to do some internships there, to get to know people that were at that time students that became actually very successful founders. And during my PhD time in Berkeley, I was part of the Management of Technology China program of the business school. So we interviewed actually famous people in China, in like not necessarily even in biotech, like the founding team of Alibaba or Baidu, were people that you could still that time approach in China. Does it fit to a PhD in immunology? Not strictly. Did it open my mind and create a completely different network? Absolutely.
What's the challenge after completing then your studies? You had your first company. What was the main challenge that you had in the very first company?
Well, I mean, like wherever 360 degrees, everywhere there are challenges. But the good thing is if you start a startup very early and then also in a different environment. I mean, I left California to start my first company in Singapore. So the deal was basically if after 6 months, it really doesn't work, today's wife, that time the girlfriend, we'll pick another place, I'll get a normal job and it's fine. I'll just say, well, I was traveling around the world after my PhD. So the threshold was not so high. And originally, I was a scientist and then moved up to the ranks and became very quickly the CEO of the company because I realized actually I like to build teams. I like to actually be very like seeing the strength of different people and how they actually can become team players while having a scientific background. And then I had the vision of actually starting a biotech company on an island like Singapore. How do you bridge it to Germany, to Europe, to the US? All of a sudden, I thought that's natural. I know what to do. I know which people to call.
Serial entrepreneurship is often romanticized a lot. Being a serial entrepreneur yourself, what's a part of that life that isn't talked about openly enough?
I mean, entrepreneurship is often cool, and a lot of people try to squeeze in a little bit of, I worked with this at that startup a little bit. It is tough. It is actually, you have to realize that most things don't work. Most startups don't work. And even within a startup, you hear about like the glossy, cool stories and the exits and the big deals. Most of the time you're pitching to investors and you will not get money. 99% of the time, probably. And people tell you 3 times no before they tell you yes. I remember in Singapore, in early days, we ran out of money multiple times. I remember that we had an apartment and we were subletting rooms in the apartment so that we have income to pay employees in the company. Was that fun? No, it was stressful. But were we committed? Absolutely.
What's the difference between the biotech industry and other kind of industries for founders when you found a company? What makes this special?
I mean, a few days ago, I posted a link saying what I love in founders is the type of accidental marathon runners. And in biotech, everything takes longer. Whatever time you have, it takes twice as much resources in time and money. And you just have to know that. So you cannot just zoom through and expect that, we'll build a company. There will be a cool story within 1 year or 2 years. Eventually, what decides if people are successful is the grit, the endurance, the steady pace. Can you go for the long run? But I don't know any industry where things take longer than biotech.
Now, of course, there is still an undeniable fact is that there is still a gap between science and entrepreneurship. Do you think someone who isn't naturally entrepreneurial or very agentic, do you think they could learn to develop that skill? And if so, how would they do that?
I think people are ingenious if they're thrown into unexpected situations. And there are so many studies and there are reasons why like immigrants are actually very good entrepreneurs. And now I sit here in front of you in Germany, but I was an immigrant in Singapore. I had no clue about it. It was the first time ever I put my foot onto Singapore when I started a company. So you have to swim or sink. And I think a lot of humans are ingenious. They can be creative. They They can be hard fighters. They can come up with new ways actually to make things possible. And if you deeply look into a lot of the successful founders, it's this commitment to really get it done, to fight for it through hardship. And I think that's in a lot of people. We just sometimes we're in a surrounding where we don't have to, where like you have an easy job. Why do you actually want to stop? That's rather actually preventing entrepreneurship because everything is kind of okay.
Of course, AI is a huge topic right now, and everybody's talking about it. As of May 2026 right now, is a biotech company that, like in the offset chance, of course, is a biotech company that doesn't use AI, are they worth investing in?
I thought about that before. I'm not even sure. Like going through our portfolio, if there's a single company that doesn't use AI, because honestly, who else, like who is not using AI as individuals? There are plenty of shortcuts with AI. We as Springboard are actually very heavy on AI solutions in making investment decisions and deal flow. But what I'm always a bit careful in investing companies that are only AI in life science. So typically the ones that have hard assets, that have a lab in the loop, that have people in the loop, that have molecules in the loop, that have something that's a hard asset, that's IP, that's clinical data and access to it, are easier to invest. And even if actually you need to pivot and you need to change the business model, you can still defend it. Life science companies that are only AI, we do invest in them sometimes, but then it really depends on market traction. Do you know the customer? Do you know the market? And can you roll it out super fast?
When you invest in companies, so you say you also use AI in your deal flow and due diligence process, I suppose, for researching, it can be helpful. What can someone who's not into VC take away from this due diligence process and decision making? Do you have some frameworks to help someone make a decision in their life, for example, similar to when you choose which company to invest in?
I mean, I think there are different aspects to it. One is I think nobody has cracked how to spot in an easy way which are actually the superstar companies. It's still actually very difficult, and there's not an algorithm that can tell you this one works, this one doesn't. The algorithms are more helpful in actually doing your due diligence. How does the IP landscape look? What are the competitors? Is the market really that size? Like all the sanity checks. But a lot of is a company good or bad depends on actually people, their motivation, things that you can't assess with AI very well so far because it's not written down somewhere. Like, what is the motivation? Like, does somebody have like the team building skills or not? Will they fight for it? Because how should AI assess that information? And that's still actually down to judgment. It's down to like the random coffee chat with the founders. I like to see founders actually in non-pitch sessions first, like getting to know them, seeing how they deal with it. What do they promise? Check in 6 months later. Did they keep their promise? That's still the thing that's actually mostly human.
Now, of course, you just mentioned sitting with founders outside of non-pitch scenarios. And of course, you spend a lot of time backing founders, mentoring people. Do you ever sit across someone and see a younger version of yourself? And if you do, does that make it easier for you, or harder, of course, to say no or yes?
I mean, the real younger version of me is my daughter, and she reminds me clearly on like a lot of things, like how I made decisions. Obviously, for founders, it's the déjà vu with the situation, not necessarily so much with the personality and the person, because I try to be fair and neutral enough and help people and in different ways. And I don't think like I'm the prototype of like founder. There are certain traits I think I rather like in people. And then I think what is helpful is being on the investor side, but having empathy of that situation. Because I think a lot of professional investors don't know how it feels to do fundraising as a startup when you have never done that before. Or how do you believe in an idea where 5 people told you it's not going to fly? Like I can tell you actually what are all the negative points of your business plan. You still need to believe in that. And I have been there. So, and probably actually sensing that empathy is something that helps also in looking into startups in a different way. And then there's lots of déjà vu. Like being a first-time CEO, first time having a large board, and you have to present, and there are a lot of people looking at you with critical views. The first board meeting after a major financial round, and all of a sudden you not just have money and you feel you're relieved, but no, the pressure is up now. I can relate to that. And that's, yeah, déjà vus I actually see every month, every week often.
You have a VC company, and there are many ways to build biotech companies. One can raise money, one can try to make more revenue. Can you maybe map out what possibilities are for founders who think the only way would be pitching to a VC? Are there other options, and when are they worth it?
I see the entire spectrum, and I think it's great to build companies and particularly companies in life science that help lives of patients and have a major impact. So that's really my motivation. And there are certainly cases where venture capital is super helpful, like therapeutics. How else should you start the company? And then you have companies where you can have early revenue. And I think that's super cool. It's a great way to fund it. I mean, it's not a secret, actually, like Nanotemper, for example, for Philip Baske is a great example of a company that had to sell early and did so very successfully. And that's cool. And I think what I recognize more and more is there's the entire spectrum of like all shades of gray in between. Can you actually have customers and approach them to invest early before you can sell the product? Can you entice family offices or medium-sized company to work with you and upload actually some of the expenses to that? And I mean, we also are angel network and venture capital fund. We can invest in different ways. And I'm a big fan of actually using all the tools and being creative of how you finance a company. And that can be venture capital. And sometimes that's a great case. Venture capital is the most expensive money. If you can do it in another way, that's totally fine. And if you actually can match that with public funding, well, if you get the money, take it, sure.
Now, what do you prefer? Do you prefer building and founding a biotech company from the ground up, or do you prefer backing up companies?
I don't really know how to answer that because, I mean, the journey of I have built companies myself, I don't want to miss that in my life. That is like such a treasure and luxury actually to have lived this through, like from the very early days to actually like my last recent exit, for example. So having seen like all shapes and perspectives of that. And with that experience now moving to investing more, I think is tremendous because I can pick a bit. Like there are things I love to do, like talking about strategy, about business development, about scaling companies, different markets, overcoming hurdles in teams and actually building a stronger team, things that I love. Do I love accounting? Do I love, I mean, there was the running gag in my first company that I'm not CEO, that I'm CIO, Chief IKEA Officer, because I had to build up all the desks. Do I miss that? No. So right now it's a bit like of picking different things that I feel I can add most. And right now that's cool. I love that.
Could you walk us through what recurring activities are when working in a VC? Do you typically spend more time talking to people or doing research on your own? What does your, I don't want to say typical day because I suppose it's very diverse, but how does a day in your week look like?
So one thing people interestingly often forget is you also have to fundraise. Like a lot of startups saying, well, VCs have like magic amount of money that comes from somewhere. You also have to sell what you are doing and have to convince people to bet on you as the team that helps startups. And then I don't think I can talk about the entire venture capital investor scene because like it depends on if it's late stage or early stage, that works completely different. We are often very hands-on, so we are close to founders, and our rule is we only invest if we have impact in the company. And that often means literally being the sparring partner of the C-level of the founders, overcoming hurdles for the next investment round, thinking about the clinical path of a therapeutic, or thinking about what's the first deal to sell something to big pharma. So it is actually then very, very hands-on.
So is a significant portion of your day, you said fundraising, so meeting people one-on-one, or is it more virtually that you like send an email to pitch some companies? How does it work in practice?
I think it's all of that. I think networking comes in so many different colors. And I mean, after Corona, it's much easier to talk to people in video calls. Before that, like particularly talking about money, no matter if you're a startup or if you're actually an investor, a lot of conversations actually, the expectation was that you travel there in person. Now it's less like that, but still a lot of that is about trust. Like, do we invest in a startup? Technology check, IP check, and do we trust the people? And we do want to actually understand people, want to know them, meet them one way or the other, or have people in common that we know that speak highly about them. And it's the same thing also I think for us to fundraise money. Do people trust us? Can they just grab a coffee with us and chat? Are we the right people actually that invest their money in the best way?
You mentioned also being the sparring partner of the C-level executives. What is the typical things you try to push back to Kevlar your portfolio companies?
So like, what are the topics I focus on?
Yes. So what do you want to make sure that the founders get right as a sparring partner?
So the thing is, it's okay to make mistakes and be open with that and try to make. I'm typically. So the best thing I can give there is to be very open in talking what I actually totally screwed up. Because these are the stories you don't hear as a founder. And it's really important that you have people that are experienced in the field, that have been there before, where you know eventually they did raise money, they built up companies. And to casually say, hey, I'll tell you 3 things that I totally screwed up. It didn't work at all. And that was annoying, and we fixed it. And we could survive and go on. So a bit of that mental, psychological help, I think, is super important. Stay calm. It's cool. We'll get through. Like, we are not like on the other side. And then it's a lot of, I've been there, have seen it, opening doors. We can be very helpful in actually raising money with startups, because the startup pitch is one thing. If we actually say, hey, we have done due diligence on 20 other companies in this field, we think they are cool, that opens doors with other investors. And that's often what we have to help, unfortunately, because fundraising is right now such a difficult topic. But it can also really go down to like really technical topics, depending on actually who in our team has the deepest expertise. If it's a proteomics, genomics, multi-omics, single cell company, obviously I can't resist to dive deep into technology. If it's something else, I'll probably actually rather stay on like a surface level for technology and think of actually pharma relationships or scaling or what's the different market.
Can you give us an example of one of those mistakes you made as a founder?
So one thing where I like really underestimated how difficult it is was, I mean, my first company was a proteomics company, AYOXXA. It was basically a silicon chip with small beads on it. So the beads needed to be put into micro holes on that chip. Sounds very simple. That was actually very difficult. I'm not a micro engineer. So I thought, well, beads, gravity, they fall in there, it's fine. We'll try it a few times, eventually it will work. But I mean, you have so many like micro forces, you have like air bubbles, you have like all these like obvious things. And being 90% there and being 99.99% there for a product, that's not the last step. That's actually, that's where that's a decisive step if it will actually work or not. And most of the work, most of the resources are actually on the last meters.
Was there like a specific person or a group of people that has had the most underrated influence on your life?
I mean, I was lucky to have several very good mentors, and some of them actually I have still a very close relationship with, and without them, that would not have been possible. And this is a bit also like the unsigned deal. I mentor to other people because of that, because I had mentors that never asked for anything back and just helped me. And so I do help other people as well. And I see actually a lot of founders, a lot of like C-level of companies actually do that. And then, I mean, obviously the belief of my family around the globe of like all my crazy ideas and hardship that often you don't see from the outside, even though I don't typically too publicly talk about that. And then there's one recurring topic that friends of my childhood know, and friends I gained later don't. So I was a Pfadfinder, a Boy Scout, and I was leading actually a group as that became a larger group where that had a major effect on me in having responsibility for teams and for others. I still remember actually the first tour to France, and like a good friend of mine and I just turned 18, and the parents entrusted actually 30 kids to us. We just turned 18. And there was no question if we are trustworthy or not, and if we will bring them home safely. And that's the same trust you need to have from investors. Like, I'll do whatever it takes to make sure that everybody's safe, that this is okay, and have the responsibility for that. And that shaped me deeply. And it was fun to see then, when I started my first company, I reached out to Tobias, that friend of Scout times, and I just shared with him, I just started my first company, and he said, yeah, sure, me too. Same learnings, same lessons, and he actually became very successful with that, and like, you know my journey as well. Some of these things shape you, how you deal with people.
Would you have any advice for teenagers or students to learn and put themselves into those responsibility situations to help them later on with that?
So if I think back, I think it's important to realize in life when there is a important decision to make. I think there are just a handful of situations in your life that determine your entire life, if you go left or right. And you can be on like the common road, or you can take the road less traveled. And a lot of people don't stop for that moment and make an active decision. I mean, I often say in a lot of presentations that I gave, like I compare it with like you're standing on this like diving platform, and like at some point you'll have to jump into the water, or you can also go down. The only thing that really never works is you cannot stand on the platform and not make a decision. But I feel a lot of people are doing that. And somehow I always had the sense at these like roads, intersections, to then step back, think about it, and make a decisive decision. Like, think back of Berkeley. It was not obvious as a graduate from Berkeley to say, I'll start my first company in Singapore. 1,000 things were more obvious. And still, it was a leap of faith and a clear decision, and like sleep a night over it and then go for it, rather than linger around and say, yeah, I'll go for a job first, and in 2 years I start a company. If you ever think about that, you will never start a company.
Right now, we hear more and more predictions where there's accelerating timelines of progress, many exponentials converging. And we hear some tech executive give almost specific timelines, like 5 years, 10 years, where we could like cure all disease. Often it's executives that are not biologists. So I wanted to pick your brain on that. Where do you stand on these accelerating timelines, and how do
I mean, sure, it's true, everything is growing exponentially, and it's not growing linear, and our brain is actually made for linear processes, not for exponential ones. If you just think about the use of AI 3 years ago and today, unbelievable. But still, I recall times when actually it was possible to sequence the human genome. And so a lot of people claimed everything is solved now. We understand any genetically originating disease, we can actually soon tackle it. Was not really true. On the one hand, I worked a lot on multiple myeloma and on CAR T cells in multiple myeloma, and detecting them on a single cell technology, which was what my last company did. It's amazing that something that was a death sentence is basically a disease that can be managed, and people die of something else and not actually of multiple myeloma if they are lucky that the CAR T cells work. So it's amazing that some things can be cured, and it's almost forgotten. It can be dealt with. It's expensive, it's technology, and it works. amazing, really cool. But it's still underestimating how complex life is and what is actually disease. So I'm super critical. Future will show actually every single time there's a turn and twist, and it will turn out to be different.
If you could go back and look at your 25-year-old self in the eye and give a piece of advice, what would you tell him to do differently?
I mean, a bit of that I revealed earlier already in like these decision points in life. It sounds so easy in retrospect, but it's actually really difficult if you are young to not lose on an opportunity. It's so easy to be sucked into the normal thing. You actually go for your undergrad degree, you go for your graduate degree, you go for a postdoc, you happen to have a job offer, you take it, and you are kind of on rails going towards the horizon, and everything seems to be set and fine. But I do think actually there are often more interesting roads that take a bit more effort, that take a leap of faith. And maybe I've missed also some of them. Luckily, I think I can say some of them I saw, I took the opportunity, and it actually kind of worked.
Andreas Schmidt, thank you to encourage us to take this time to reflect when there's a decision to make. It's been a pleasure talking to you. Dear listener, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And with that, we'll see each other on the next time. Have a
Thanks
good
a
one.
lot.